Dakota Johnson dropped some truth bombs that I don't think Hollywood is ready to hear.
Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Going for a ride down the side.
Hi everyone, my name is Jacob Airy. Welcome to my vidcast where I talk about all things pop culture. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. All right, so you might know Dakota Johnson. She's a pretty recognizable face in Hollywood. You might know her from the recent Madam Web box office flop, also from the 50 Shades of Grey trilogy, as well as having a weird cameo in the Office finale, although later we found out she was supposed to be in a spin-off, but that never materialized. So it's just kind of a weird celebrity cameo in The Office. I digress. So, in an interview with People magazine, she said something that really spoke to me. And I want to shout out Steph Ani, also known as My Nerdy Home. She works for the Geeks and Gamers team as well as Salty Crackers. So, she shared it out. I wanted to give her credit because that's where I discovered this. All right, so this is what she said. I'm just going to read these two questions and these two answers. I'm not going to go over the whole interview, but so People magazine says, "Does it bother you when people write nasty reviews?" Dakota Johnson replies, "Unfortunately, I'm not surprised that this has gone down the way it has," referring to Madam Web. And then People magazine asks her, "Is there a reason for that?" Dakota Johnson replies, "It's so hard to get movies made. And in these big movies that get made, and it's even starting to happen with the little ones, which is what's really freaking me out, decisions are being made by committee. And art does not do well when it's made by committee. Films are made by filmmaker with a team of artists around them. You cannot make art based on numbers and algorithms. My feeling has been for a long time that audiences are are extremely smart, and executives have started to believe that they're not. Audiences will always be able to sniff out BS. Even if films start to be made with AI, humans aren't going to bleeping want to see those. But it was definitely an experience for me to make that movie. I had never done anything like it before. I probably will never do anything like it again because I don't make sense in that world. And I know that now, but sometimes in this industry you sign on to something and it's one thing, and then as you're making it it becomes a completely different thing and you're like, "Wait, what?" But it was a real learning experience, and of course it's not nice to be a part of something that's ripped to shreds, but I can't say that I don't understand. So she said a couple of things there that I wanted to break down. I have not seen Madam Web, so I'm going by the opinions of others at the moment. But um, I always think it's interesting how, People magazine are framing this as nasty reviews. Okay, nasty reviews have existed for a long time, even from movies that are good. Star Wars Episode 1 of Phantom Menace, and Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith. That trilogy was, at first, when Phantom Menace premiered, it was actually given good reviews, but then some weirdo, rando YouTube channel made some mockery of the Phantom Menace. And all of a sudden, all these negative reviews come out. And then it all of a sudden became not cool to like the Star Wars prequels. Thanks to all those people, that's how we got the Disney sequels. Anyway, but those have been around for a long time. I remember when It's a Wonderful Life came out, it was this beautiful picture of a man, using community spirit to bring people together. It wasn't based on government or science. It was just the human spirit and the drive to succeed. It was him having to sacrifice parts of his dream, but he managed to come together. The critics lambasted it, so it was a box office failure. So what happens? He goes, or I mean, I mean the filmmaker. He lets the copyright status lapse. It goes on television, and all of a sudden, people are like, "Hey, this movie's really good," and it becomes really famous. And they manage to get the copyright renewed again, actually through the music, not through the film itself. Same can be said for Citizen Kane. Now it's considered one of the greatest movies ever made, but because it was sort of a movie that mocked journalists and certainly people who owned newspapers and owned a news organization, it got lambasted. Now it's considered one of the greatest American movies ever made. So nasty reviews have always been around. People Magazine framing it this way is very dishonest. That being said, I thought her answer was reasonable. Now to the meat of it. And this is something that I've been saying to my friends who are real big into the pop culture space, and they always want to talk about how normies don't know what they like versus what they don't like. Because one of the things is you'll see how sometimes even bad movies, they'll have a really low critic ratings, it'll be 10%, but then they'll have higher audience ratings. And here's the reason for that. The audience, when they see a movie trailer, very rarely are they fooled by it. And this is what Dakota Johnson is saying. Audiences are smart, but executives and some people in the cinephile space think that they're dumb. So what happens? So they see a bad movie like, say, Sharknado. It's got a very low score, but the audience score is a little higher. Why? Because audiences weren't fooled by the trailer. They went into this knowing it was going to be a cheesy movie. So in that perspective, they were like, yeah, it was cheesy, but I had a good time watching it, and same with the Fast and Furious movies or the Transformers sequels. The audience will give those scores or those movie scores higher than the critics, because the critics, and I'm talking specifically about mainstream critics here, people who work for mainstream press outlets or corporate press outlets, whatever you want to call them. Um, for some reason get fooled by trailers. They see it and they think this movie is going to be the next Godfather or the next Citizen Kane. And when it's not, they're like, but then the audience goes, I'm not fooled by this movie. This movie does look a little bit cheesy. I want to go have a good time. So that explains that disparity, in my opinion. Now, I could be wrong about that. That's just from mine. That's why whenever I write my movie reviews, I always try to look at it from that perspective. From, does the general audience member, would they like this movie in this way? That's why I don't consider myself a critic, and I've done a whole video breaking down on the difference between a movie critic and a movie reviewer. And like I always say, critics tend to look at a movie from the perspective of all of cinema. They compare it to past, and obviously I've made comparison in my movie reviews, but I always try to go, what did I feel in the moment? What did I feel watching this movie? How would I have enjoyed this? Sometimes I've aligned with the critics versus the audience. That happens sometimes, and sometimes I align with the audience. Sometimes I'm my own man out there. I do have some bizarre opinions. Some have said it. You can reference to what I said about the Star Wars prequels earlier. But all that to say, I appreciate Dakota Johnson saying this. The audiences know they're not fooled by your cheeky advertisements, your DEI woke empowerment speeches. No one is fooled by that. And in fact, audiences are tired of it. They're tired of bad movies. That's why movies like Godzilla Minus One, Top Gun Maverick, Dune Part Two do very well, because they go in knowing what to expect. Barbie is a great example of this. Oppenheimer is a great example of this. They go into it ready to enjoy a taste of cinema. And it is disheartening when you hear filmmakers, whether it be producers or screenwriters, directors, actors, just whine about, oh, the audience is so stupid. If only they would just go come see my movie, they might learn something. Audiences don't want to see a movie to learn something. It's a form of escapism. And if they glean something from that, then you've accomplished something as a movie creator, a movie director, producer, writer, actor, whatever you are. And it's so amazing to me how the film industry has gotten so arrogant. They've developed this hubris that they can do no wrong, that they can just keep serving slop. I remember for a while in the early 2000s, there was a big trend on making movies that made American soldiers look like idiots. Green Zone with Matt Damon comes to mind, specifically, or even something like The Hurt Locker, which is cinematically, it's a very good movie, but it was made to make soldiers look obsessive and emotional, and it was just disparaging to U.S. soldiers and veterans. So the movie didn't do well at the box office. Then American Sniper comes around the corner, which shows genuinely the struggle that soldiers go through, the emotions, the waves, and then it blows up at the box office. And then they were like, "Oh, I'm confused. I thought audiences didn't like this." No, of course, audiences want to see soldiers. They even want to see hard stories from soldiers. The problem is Hollywood is making a mockery of soldiers. They were being disparaging, and no one wants to see that. Think about how that goes, right? You don't want to, because everyone in their family had a veteran or has a veteran or an active duty service member in their family. So, going back to Dakota Johnson's comments, I think that was very brave of her to break from the groupthink of Hollywood. I'm sure she'll say some political thing that I disagree with down the road, or she'll say something stupid, as most celebrities do, and I'll make a video on that. But it's talking specifically about this quote. The My feeling has been for a long time that audiences are extremely smart, and executives have started to believe that they're not. That's what's happening, and you can see that with the Marvel franchise, with Star Wars, with Star Trek, with He-Man. They don't think you're smart, and they're going to try to destroy you. But you don't have to take it. Watch old stuff, watch indie stuff, go for it, go look out. And remember, you do not owe Hollywood the benefit of the doubt. No one does. And especially all those people who protected Harvey Weinstein, who protect people from consequences. Oprah and The Rock are going to lecture you about giving to victims of the Hawaiian fires when they're, literal billionaires, and they could easily help all those people. But no, they want you to send your money. Absolutely stark raving mad, some of these things that these celebrities come up with. You do not owe them the benefit of the doubt. Vote with your wallets when it comes to Hollywood, because if Dakota Johnson's comments are any sort of clue, things are starting to shift.
Cause I've been living life